All right, well, here we are. We are with the amazing Wendy Dumaresq from Natural Women Network, and we're here tonight to talk to you about how to maximize your productivity and your profit. And I'm going to introduce Wendy in a sec, but you can say hello because the people at home can hear you and see you.
Hello.
Hello. This is a topic that's very dear to my heart. When I was working full-time, I was working sort of 60 or 70 hours a week in my full-time role, as well as trying to launch my sales coaching business. And I had a history for about a decade of not being able to sleep properly. So I was sort of out for the count for about 10 hours a night, and it was just a horrible, interrupted, not quality sleep. And the short story is that I ended up hacking myself into sleeping a good solid 6 to 7 hours a night, was able to free up sort of an extra 3 to 4 hours a day, which meant an enormous amount to my mental health, my physical health, and my ability to be both a productive employee and build my business. So when Wendy and I came across each other, I thought, what a wonderful opportunity for us to share this message, not necessarily around sleep, but about really maximizing how productive you can be, to avoid burnout, and to make sure that you're really making the most of every minute of every day. Everybody has the same amount of hours. It's what we do with it. And naturally, how well we are and how fit we are is going to have a massive impact. And Wendy is in a very unique position to share her messages with us around this particular topic. She's the founder of the Natural Women Network. She's the creator of the Women's Health Mastery Program. She's the author of Enterprise with Soul. And I'm curating her qualifications and her expertise down to just a few minutes here. A qualified health practitioner and a business owner of many decades, and worked as in a business for many years. So she's in a really great and unique position to share with us how entrepreneurs can really maximize their productivity for profit. Welcome, Wendy. Please share with us a little bit about your passion and what really drives you and what's really important for you right now around health.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for that lovely introduction, and it's been great to meet you. Yes, it is a big concern of mine that so many entrepreneurs burn out, and you've exactly explained how easily that can happen, because we can be really passionate about what we do. And before we know it, we've gone over that little black line.
Yes.
And that can manifest, as in your case, with the exhaustion and the sleep, and there would have been cognitive disrepair and lots of other things with that. And it's one of the reasons why I don't just work with women. I've got that as a bit of a focus at the moment, but I've always worked with men and women who are really interested in supporting their health status so that they can keep achieving their business and professional goals. Because unfortunately in the past, I tend to get to them a bit late, because they'll come to me because their doctor might have said, oh, look, you know, we've got nothing for you in conventional medicine, go and see Wendy, you know, because I'm also a business graduate. So, you know, that's a bit of a missing link in that as a medical herbalist and natural medicine in lots of modalities, I also have the background of having worked in corporates, especially in the heady days of the 80s of the corporate takeovers and so on, and doing 60, 80 hours a week myself. I burnt out as well, and I was only, how old was I? I was only 26 then. And I really noticed, and at that time there were only a couple of women in the section I was in, which was working in shareholders trying in the days of the corporate takeovers. And that's when I started to become very interested in how to maintain health and well-being and maximise focus and productivity and energy and enjoyment at the same time as trying to maintain your goals for your work. And they often seemed not an
easy feat to manage. So I'm really curious. In a room recently of there were about 60 or 70 entrepreneurs, and they were being polled from the front of the room to sort of yell out what were their assets that they had in their business. And of course, the typical things came up around, computer equipment or people, or various things came up from a sort of, I would call it more an economical sort of spreadsheet kind of way. I was really interested because none of the entrepreneurs mentioned their health as an asset. I'm curious what your thoughts are on why is it that a lot of entrepreneurs don't value their health as highly as perhaps they should?
That's a really good question. Sometimes we have to have a health interruption before we value it.
Yeah.
I've had 2 near-death experiences, so it took me a while to learn when I was young. And out of that came my passion for helping people with their health to have the health status to match what they wanted to do in life. And before that, I was just like, I was born with the entrepreneurial gene, which is, like sometimes it's a curse. And, just go, go, go. I just didn't stop. And, I had to learn the hard way. And I don't want people I work with to have to learn the hard way. So it's very important, there are certain characteristics that many entrepreneurs can have that can lend towards not so much, I find, ignoring their health, but superimposing their dreams over it. So most of the people I speak to are conscious of the fact that they need to be well in order to achieve their dreams, but the passion takes over. And it's very interesting because one of the things I was going to bring up was what I find to be the 10 most common health hiccups that entrepreneurs can have, because there is a very specific mindset for an entrepreneur.
Yes.
It's not, an entrepreneur's a bit different in my mind to an everyday business. Entrepreneurs are inventors. Entrepreneurs, in the days before this sort of technology, in the days when the world was still thought to be square, entrepreneurs were your Christopher Columbuses, who, and they were your pioneers. And I think today's contemporary entrepreneurs are actually pioneers in the same way, but we live in such a fast-paced world that we forget ourselves. And so just presenting that one of the major health hiccups that a lot of entrepreneurs can have are mental health hiccups. And in a study done by Dr. Michael Freeman at the University of California in San Francisco, he did a specific study of 242, I'm just looking at the notes here because it's the other end of the day for me, 242 participants who were all entrepreneurs. And there were 93 participants in the control group who weren't entrepreneurs, and they were looking specifically at the mental health traits of entrepreneurs and their resilience. And it was really interesting that it was actually 72% of the 242 entrepreneurs with self-evaluation came up with having mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, right through to bipolar, all sorts of things. And he concluded, well, you would have to be a bit mad to be an entrepreneur.
And that's so true. You have to be absolutely crazy. And one of the things I'd like to sort of be a little more inclusive right now is the amount of what are called intrapreneurs now. And you may not, I don't know if you've heard that term before, but that's essentially an entrepreneur that works within a business. And lots of businesses now are looking for entrepreneurial-minded people with an entrepreneurial spirit, but don't necessarily have a business themselves or even want to have a business themselves, but they work within an organization as an intrapreneur. And I see a lot of parallels between what you're mentioning there with entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and often in my speciality, salespeople, because often salespeople operate like an entrepreneur or as an intrapreneur because they are very responsible for business acumen and dollars through the door and lead generation and a whole bunch of things that are really quite broad and general. So I'm really curious what you perceive, Wendy. So you've mentioned mental health, which is clearly a big sort of issue that a lot of entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs face. What are some of the other sort of key health issues that you come across in your expertise?
Yes, there's quite a few. So some of what I'm listing is because it's also been reflected in studies, and some of it's what I've found clinically myself. And just on the entrepreneur, I totally agree. In my Enterprise with Soul book, I actually put entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and social entrepreneurs all in the same boat.
Yeah.
And then another field that's a little bit different to that I call greentrepreneurs. So they're green entrepreneurs. And there's some, you know, so they're like sustainable industries, and there's a lot of pressure in that as well. And I've been that for many years. So it's a little bit of a different focus with all. But they basically, you know, you can never categorise people totally, because I don't believe in it, because we're all individual. But there does seem to be, you know, a set of specific health hiccups that I see in a lot of people, apart from the mental health, which we can do a heck of a lot about with natural treatment and so on. One of them is high blood pressure.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a big one. And these are actually, all of these points are related, and I'll get to that in a minute, because they're related in that you can actually do things about them with some simple techniques. Okay,
Right.
so high blood pressure, yeah, high blood pressure can be very situational, or it can be come from your genetics a bit, diet, all sorts of other things. But the pressure of being an entrepreneur, even though we love it, we have to learn to turn off. And I had to get very good at that years and years ago, because I had children and a partner as well, and you can't take it home to them. Back pain and back problems is a really big one.
Right.
I don't think there's many people I've worked with who haven't had some sort of spinal or back problems, and that can be, you know, because of, especially if you're in the digital world these days, as you know yourself, you're spending a lot of time in front of the box.
Yes.
And there's strategies that are good for that. Another one is weight issues, because a lot of entrepreneurs are really flat out, and they might not actually be eating according to what their metabolism needs. And I'll go into a simple thing to look at about that as well. And that's something that has all these risks associated if you're putting on too much weight, because your blood pressure will go up, you'll have more back pain.
That's related, yeah.
And it often can lead to mental health issues as well. So joint and circulation problems, you know, a bit similar to back problems, but can be a bit different, but often caused by inappropriate diet, or there might be chronic infection, or there might be back problems that's led to lack of mobility. So vision problems are really common, you know, the blurry vision and so on, that you get from too long either on that little white screen or bigger ones. And sleep problems, as in your case, is a huge one, because it affects our melatonin cycle and our adrenal hormones a lot. Okay, so that's a really big one. Migraines can be triggered by the stress and by poor posture and dietary so on. And hormonal havoc, and it's not just women. A lot of people think when you're saying hormones, it's about women. But yes, I love seeing men, because there's not so many jolly hormones involved. But it's not just about estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. Okay, it's about also adrenal hormones like cortisol and DHEA. High cortisol, you know, is a aging hormone, an inflammatory hormone, a high risk hormone. DHEA helps reduce all those risks. So I often do salivary hormone tests with people to see where there is at and track that. And the melatonin levels, which is the hormone byproduct that helps you get to sleep and wake up and so on. Yeah. So, you know, they're the 10 main things I see, and every single one of them is manageable and even reversible if you know what to do.
So that I would love to know more about that, because one of the things that I notice is that people are when they go to doctors, and this has certainly been my experience, where it might be fatigue based or stress based, and they're so quick to prescribe some kind of pill or an antidepressant or something like that, and I am aware that there's so much that you can do before you get to drugs. There's so
Yes.
much you can do, and it doesn't, because I can imagine being an entrepreneur, being busy, a lot of working mums, working dads, don't have time to sort of prepare healthy food, and so that's where they reach for the sort of takeaway sort of option. But there is so much you can do, isn't there, Wendy, that doesn't take a lot of time, doesn't take a lot of money, doesn't take a lot of effort. So run us through a couple of those techniques. I'd love to hear about that.
Sure. Well, one important thing to remember, and when I'm starting with a health mastery program with someone or running a group program, I usually get each person just to check in with their GP, because I work with the team approach. And I've been fortunate for most of my clinical practice to have a team approach, in that we had a multidisciplinary clinic environment, and if it wasn't in that environment, we had a big circle of people, GPs, specialists, myself, other practitioners who we knew could get benefit, and we knew what was going on for each patient. It was the best patient outcomes. Okay, so it's important that people don't see one type of medicine as being better than another. It's about seeing whichever's appropriate at the moment and having a team approach, because most people maybe spend more on their car than they do on their health. And guess what? If you don't have your health, you're not going to have that car.
Yeah, very true.
So I love to leave people with something really simple. And if you just think the three S's. Now, that's easy to remember.
Yep.
It could sound rather interesting, actually, when you think about it. And one of these, the first one is the three S's that can greatly either make or break your health. Now, there's heaps more. There's like probably 100 or more, but I like to keep it simple. So stress. Okay. Now, stress causes a lot of those 10 most common things that I've said about. But it's actually not stress that causes it. I know that sounds weird. It's actually the way we look at things. It's our mindset. Okay. So I'm sure anyone over the age of 2 has had some sort of what's perceived by them as adverse situations. Okay. And I've had plenty myself, and I have learned. I've had 20 plus years of doing Soto Zen Buddhist practice, where you learn how important it is to be boss of yourself. And that means boss of this thing here. So we actually have to have stress in our life, or we can't get out of bed in the morning, because that's what the cortisol levels that kick in when we're to wake up. That causes a tiny amount of stress in our body so that we can get out of bed. So what happens the rest of the day is that we get carried away with our monkey mind. And, it's really easy to do, because haven't I been there? And we just forget that, we all have stress is part of life. It's how we deal with it that's important. So I generally will speak to people about whatever is going to be the most appropriate way for them to make stress their friend rather than their foe. And it's like, when you were talking about when you were having, doing that really busy job that you had and you were loving it as well, there's a point where when you go over the line, even though you might still enjoy it, it becomes negative stress. But before that, it's what I call positive stress.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's certainly a lot of herbs and nutrients, dietary and so on, that I utilise to help the body deal better with stress. But at the end of the day, our mindset is the most important thing, and to remember that we're here to enjoy rather than endure.
Yes, good. I like that. Yeah.
Another big one, and oh no, some people aren't going to like this, but one of the things I see as being the greatest threats to our health is the sugars and starches that most people eat in abundance.
Yeah.
And that all started, if you look back, if you're doing medical anthropology, for example, and you're looking back through the annals, you'll find that a lot of this started when we started the high carb diets years ago, probably a generation or two ago, when people started having a lot more pastas and breads and lots more cakes, and we became a much more affluent society. And I call it the disease of overnutrition. And it's amazing how sugars in particular, so anything ending with OSE, so even too much fruit sugar, fructose, for some people can be quite poisonous. It can hugely affect how your brain works.
Yeah.
So it's not just about how the rest of your body works. So you'll get an instant hit of sugar and you'll feel great for half an hour. And then if you've got a bit of insulin resistance or your body's not dealing with it, you'll just go crashing down, and you'll probably be at some stage diagnosed with chronic fatigue. Okay. And it's the same with the starches. So there's really starchy foods. I don't mean the really good complex carbohydrates, but I'm meaning your cakes and your breads and pastas and all those lollies and alcohol, all those sorts of things. So if you're really wanting to get a really good start with your health, I used to, do it gradually, get people unhooked from that. But I found that doesn't work. You just got to go cold turkey.
Yeah.
And I work with people at that, and I know within about 3 or 4 days or up to a week, they can't believe how much more focused they are.
Yeah.
They're and their mood. It's also the case with some people with gluten and dairy. Like if I have gluten, probably in an hour or two, I'll be either asleep or feeling like slashing my wrists. Okay. I'm not kidding. It is terrible for some people.
Yeah.
So those are two food products that some people don't deal with well either. Not everyone, but some people. So I'll tell you a really good breakfast to have.
Yeah.
That can start your day. You're talking about how busy people are. And people often say to me, oh, well, I'm too busy to have breakfast. And I say, well, you're too busy not to, actually.
Yeah.
You can do this the night before. Just make yourself a smoothie. I use a vegan protein powder that's certified organic. If anyone wants that, I can send them the link. That I'll give it to you. And I'll put some berries in that, probably frozen unless they're fresh, because of the effect of the antioxidants in the berries on your brain and other parts of your body, and they're low sugar.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll just add water to that. I add a few other things as well. And that, with, say, some nuts and seeds, is a fantastic breakfast to have, and it actually gives me heaps of energy. I might go for a 2-hour ride after that,
Wow. Yeah.
And because I've worked with a lot of I was going to say alcoholics. I haven't worked with that many alcoholics, but athletes, I worked out that I don't know, if you're an athlete, you'll know there's this term that's called bonking. In general society, that means something else, but in athlete society, that means where you suddenly lose power. Like there's nothing, no give left. When you see people in marathons just stop and drop down, that's bonking. So I know that an hour and 10 minutes of a moderate ride with lots of hills and that, I need to have something that's got balanced carbs, proteins, and good fats. And I have recipes for that. I'll give you the recipe for that as well, because they're my energy balls. So they're really good to take to work, to have, say, one of them at mid-morning. Or if you make extra of the smoothie and take that to have mid-morning or mid-afternoon, because a lot of people have a energy low at about 2 or 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay.
We might grab that recipe off you, if that's okay, Wendy, and we can.
We'll get to that. What we'll do is I'll send you the links and you can put it up.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
we've talked about stress and mindset. We've talked about cooking the
sugars.
sugar stuff. Yeah.
And
So
another one is sedentary. The
right.
sedentary style is a huge enemy
Yeah.
because just sitting more or being less active with the type of, so many people's work is in offices or digital, different if it involves, you know, horticulture or something like that. But like when you're sitting a lot, for example, it can actually really affect the arterial blood supply behind your legs, going down to your bottom legs, and it can affect your back, and you can gain more tummy weight, and it can just feel really dreadful. So what I usually get people to do is set their timer, and every 20 to 30 minutes, just get up and walk around, and every 2 or 3 hours, go for a really brisk walk for 15 or 20 minutes, and that also clears your head. And people say, oh, I haven't got time. And I just say again, well, you haven't got time not to. But they come back, they're so refreshed, they're much more productive.
Yeah. Agreed.
And
It's interesting, isn't it, that, you know, you only need to take a break every, you know, sometimes things like it could be simple as not having, you know, if you're drinking water, not having a whole water bottle at your desk. Have a situation where you actually have to get up to get a glass of water, which means at least every 20 minutes you'll be getting up and moving, even if it's just to get a glass of water and back again. But it'll keep that blood moving, the oxygen moving, you stay more alert.
yes, exactly. And it's also important, you know, when you're looking at the sugars and starches, to remember that the good fats give you fantastic energy. And I go into that a lot with people. So things like macadamia nuts, avocados, coconut, and so on. But I tend to design it specifically for the person because everyone has different needs. And, you know, you've got to take into account people's health challenges. And so with the dietary, the herbs, the lifestyle and all that, there's so many general things you can do, and then we fine tune it according to, you know, people might be on meds and some foods might not be appropriate and so on. So that's why I love people.
Yeah. Sorry, Wendy, you go.
That's why I love to work with the different types of entrepreneurs and professional and career people, because they're the ones that are bringing forward the vision, you know, for the future. And they're the ones who, you know, why I work with leaders is because they also influence their team, but more than anything, they influence their children just by how they behave themselves. So it's my way of having my mark on the world in that way to create a better world.
Yeah, I love that, Wendy. Thank you so much. And I love what you've shared tonight is just some simple, straightforward ways that we can improve our health. It's not complicated. It's nice and simple and easy things that everybody can implement. So if we want to know, if the listeners want to know more about you, Wendy, or they want to get in touch with you to you know, maybe work with you to improve their health, what's the next steps? How do we get in touch with you?
People can give me a call or an email, because I have to do an assessment with anyone who is wanting to have a health mastery program to make sure it's right. And I do say no to some people because it has to be a really good fit. You know, people who are ready to take charge and can see the importance of it, it works really well for. And if people aren't quite ready yet, I often have other ways that they can make a start until they're ready. So they can give me a call. I offer a complimentary 15-minute assessment discussion, and that's no obligation, because, you know, the right fit is the best thing. Yeah.
Wonderful. And so what's your website, Wendy? Is it website best to sort of get in touch with you? Your phone number and email?
I've got a couple of websites. So there's the naturalwomannetwork.thinkific.com. That's the online learning site. And for other general health and health mastery, it's radiantwomenbook.com. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay.
info@radiant-women.com.
info@radiant-women.com. Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for sharing your expertise. I know that I've learned a few things, a couple of reminders as well, things that I did know that I'm thinking, oh, I've got to get back to doing all of that. So thanks again for sharing your message with our audience. And if you want to get in touch with Wendy, she's a fabulous lady. Her and I have had some wonderful chats. She's just wonderful to have a chat with and get to know. So if you're sitting on the couch there, or you're sitting listening to this and you're sitting there thinking, oh, I really should do a little bit more, then turn a should into did and get in touch with her and reach out for that 15-minute no obligation consultation. Thanks again, Wendy. It's been amazing. Thank you again, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you, Sharon, and everyone
Thank
else.
you. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Bye.
See you later. Bye.